So, as a speech and language therapist, what other professionals do you work with collaboratively in your practice?
Teachers, Senkos, head teachers, and kindergarten teachers, social workers, RTLBs, occupational therapists, physiotherapists from health, education support workers, that's who we employ. So other professionals outside of ministry or inside. Early intervention teachers, psychologists, who else? I think who else? Like people from Strengthening Families. So they're not really social workers, but they're called Strengthening Families coordinators. On one case, we've got a lady from Otara Health.
Oh, yeah.
And social workers, I guess people from SEFs quite often.
Okay, gosh, that's quite a lot. Okay, to what extent do you feel collaboration influences positive outcomes for students?
Hugely. The cases where we have had a really good collaborative, working relationship, it makes it much easier for the student. The outcomes are better because everyone's got the same goals going forwards. It's not someone doing this, someone else doing this, someone having completely unrealistic goals, and the child's not really moving forward. So it's got to be, the collaboration is key. I think particularly with working in the schools when you've got the CISO and you've got the teacher and you've got teacher aides and you've got maybe RTLBs coming in as well. Everybody has to be on the same page to move forward. Otherwise, no one's goals get met.
Do you feel that that's normal?
It depends. It should be. I don't think it is in all cases. I've got some cases where we've got really good collaboration, some cases where there's no collaboration, and that's really hard then. Even sometimes collaboration with the Senkos at the school is really hard. They don't often have a clue and they don't understand the programs, and then they feed that back. We had one school that the two teachers I was doing LLI with, they were just told, you've got to go on a day's PD. So they came to the workshop and had no idea that it was an ongoing program with a commitment of videoing and all this. And they were really good. They were really took it on board, and that was really good. But actually that was because the collaboration with the Senko didn't feed down. So it's not, it should be the norm, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
It makes it hard.
So how do you encourage partnership with parents and other professionals in the course of your practice?
We have before we can start working with any child, we have to meet the parents, obviously, and we have to get informed consent to go through. So we go through the service and we keep them informed of everything that's going on. Parents, it's easier with the preschool children because they come into the sessions, or we see them more regularly. But at school it's slightly harder, and particularly with our catchment area and our area we cover, the engagement is tricky. So, you might get the paperwork signed and then you don't necessarily have much of an ongoing relationship with them. But, we keep them up to date. We'd invite them to the workshops, we'd invite them to IEP meetings or hold IEP meetings for the families so that everyone is on board, and try and keep in written contact, but sometimes that's tricky as well. We'll try and support them, and if they need any support from extra agencies, we can do like a Strengthening Families referral if we think that they need more support.
When you say written communication, if they're not English speaking, do you translate?
No, we don't. We do have access to interpreters, which we can book, not on site, but we can get interpreter services. And before for the Māori and Pacifica chilled families, we have Kaitaka Wainga will go out and do a cultural profile before. And at that stage they can kind of request if they need any extra supports or cultural supports, then they can come with us to support us as well. But yeah, and I mean, I guess a lot of my stuff's done through text sometimes, just saying, I'm going in, is there any concerns, how are they going? Because a lot of the families don't answer the phones or they don't have the money to call you back, so if I text then, or cold calling sometimes, just drop past and you haven't been at kindy, what are you doing, what's the matter? So it's or sending letters about, this is when I'll be seeing your child and this is what they're doing, but again, you don't always know that it's got there or that they can read it, so it's hard.
Okay, what is your understanding of evidence-based practice?
What's my understanding? Well, that there's research and evidence to back up things that you do. So with us, I guess a lot of the speech language therapy therapies, particularly for speech sounds, there's a lot of evidence-based practice to show that this kind of therapy is the best way to deal with this sound. And the same, around the LLI is quite good because there's research done around collaborative working in the classrooms and being inclusive and not that withdrawal method that it used to be. So that's kind of evidence-based, and that's why we lean towards doing what is evidence-based rather than just trogging along doing something that makes no difference, because it's not, in the programs that we run, we do Hannon, which is parent training programs for preschool kids, and that's for either for children who are on the spectrum or just children who have got language delays, and they're all heavily evidence-based and research-based. So
very good. Okay, so describe how, well, you probably already have, but see if there's anything else. Describe how you include evidence-based practice in your casework.
So I guess through following programs like the Hannon programs and the LLI programs, continually reflecting on what you're doing, and whether that's kind of self-reflection, but also in supervision sessions and peer supervision on, if with a case this isn't going very far, like what else could I do, and looking at what other practices might work. And so just continual reflection as well.
Cool. Okay, can you describe how you support teachers to adapt classroom programs to cater for students with speech needs?
Yeah, so at the moment there's the big push on LLI, so that's supporting them to write action plans with goals for language literacy and numeracy that are not different to, it's not something extra for them to do. It's like looking at what they're already doing and what can we focus on and what supports can they put in place, how can they maybe change how they do certain activities for the level of that child. So it's working so that they're inclusive in the classroom and that they're just putting strategies like visuals in place, or reducing the amount of questions that they give them or the types of questions. And providing training as well, going and doing training for the teachers around what is inclusive, but also how to support children with speech and language needs in the classroom, just some of the more general basic things. But making sure that we work with them to see so that they're present, they're participating in their learning, so that we can look at all those things that are the key things, really.
Absolutely. And last one. How important do you feel a strengths-based approach is for successful intervention?
Strengths-based. Based on the child's strengths, hugely, because there needs to be, and you have to be working on their strengths and building on those strengths so that they can actually have the strategies to cope. I think the LLI program for school children is really, really nice, because it looks at kind of what they're doing now, and then it looks at, okay, well, what are they already doing, and what can we put in place to kind of move them on slightly, and tying into, like, it looks at what are their interests, what strategies help them communicate, what are the strengths around them, and then using that to kind of inform how the teachers can support in the classrooms. Because I think otherwise you're flogging a dead horse, trying to get them moved on, and you're not actually working on it. It's an uphill struggle before you even start.
Absolutely. Wonderful.